Hello, welcome. This is Experiments in Poetry and your host, Wendy. Today we'll be doing a deep dive into the background story behind my poem, White Noise. If you haven't already, please go ahead and watch the video I posted on this channel entitled White Noise, a Jack White inspired poem. There you will be able to see the whole poem in its entirety. So the muse for this poem was Jack White, and Jack White is an American musician, singer, songwriter. He first made it onto the scene and became well known in the band the White Stripes. Then he formed the band the Rock on Tours, as well as Dead Weather, and he also performs as a solo artist. Actually, right now he has two albums he's releasing. He released just one recently called Fear Dawn, and then he is coming out with one shortly called Entering Heaven Alive. Although the thing about the internet is that I feel like it's relatively timeless here. So even though that's what's going on right now, and I definitely want to give a shout out to that for all Jack White fans to go out and hear his new music, or for those just starting to become Jack White fans to go out and hear his music as well. But I do feel like the interesting thing about the internet is that it's timeless. So I might be posting this this video here in 2022. However, I'm fully aware that somebody could be listening to this in 2032 or 2042, which makes it very interesting. So how I got inspired to write this poem is kind of a very weird story. Before I get into it, though, I would like to first introduce myself. My name is Wendy Allman. I am your host, creator of this channel and this poetry/literature journal. I'm also a scientist, a writer, an inventor, among many other things. So I wanted to create this channel for writers of poetry, short stories, lyrics to come together and to share their work. And the show is called Experiments in Poetry because I am a scientist and I like to experiment with different things. One of my favorite Albert Einstein quotes is, "If we knew what it is we were doing, it would not be called research, now would it?" So for this channel, I'd like everyone to keep in mind that, we're not all Shakespeare here. And we are just going out there, having fun, creating, forming a community. And, you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have a PhD in English to contribute to this channel. So I would like to say, if we knew what it was we were doing, it would not be called Experiments in Poetry, now would it? So that's a little bit about what the purpose of this channel is. So let's get into my inspiration. As I said before, it was kind of like a really unusual experience. I had been working as a research scientist for the FDA, working on vaccines, immunology, autoimmune diseases. And I had kind of left that whole career behind, and I was kind of going through a lot at the time and reassessing and making a new career as a forensic scientist. So right now I investigate um, violent crimes in Kentucky as a forensic biologist. And when I was going through that transition, I was doing a lot of kind of meditating because, most of my poetry actually that I write is kind of quite dark, very, very dark. I use poetry to kind of as therapy to kind of process, all the things that I'm seeing and doing. And it takes a special type of person to be a scientist. It takes a special type of person to be able to handle what you have to do and the types of things that you see on a day to day basis. And so, along with writing, I also do a lot of meditation. And I, um, as part of my writing at the time, I was kind of writing a book of poetry that was a very dark, dystopic, scientific future type of book where all the poems were related to that. And um, it was a lot of disease and just a lot of kind of dark stuff. And I was also using meditation. And so to kind of like process everything that I was feeling and to release and just to clear my mind. And I don't know, I was probably listening to some, I don't know, like meditation video and some sort of music, not really music, but more like, you know, sound, frequencies, vibrations to kind of help you get into that meditative state and kind of like cleanse your mind or spirit or however you want to think about it. And so when I was doing this meditation, just so strongly, it's hard to even explain it. Like I'm supposed to be thinking about nothing, just clearing my mind, and I was, and then out of nowhere, like I just have this very like strong download for this poem I created, White Noise. And I just remember seeing like Jack White's face as clear as day, and just all this words just came to me. And I thought that was really, really, really interesting. It's not like the whole entire poem came to me, it's just the essence of it did. And I just, the weird part of it is that at this point in time, I don't know when it was probably about 2014, 2015, somewhere in that time period. Well, 2015, 2016. And um, I probably haven't listened to any Jack White music at that time since he was in the White Stripes. So I don't know what made him just like pop into my mind and just thinking about frequencies and all of this stuff. So, I went to kind of see like what is it, that he has out, and I saw that his latest album was called Lazzarato. And I'm like, that's an interesting name. I don't know what that means. And so I listened to the song. You can kind of get a sense for what it means because Lazzarato wasn't only the name of the album, but it was also a song on the album. And so I looked up, what does Lazzarato mean? And it turns out that it's not the definition verbatim, but it was something like a lazaretto is a like kind of a place where sick people, those with most likely an infectious disease, are quarantined. And I thought, oh my God, that is so interesting because the book that I was writing, um, the lead character is a scientist who is basically a survivor of an infectious disease type of outbreak, working at some sort of underground government facility with the last vestiges of humanity. And so I thought that was really, really funny, um, that I was kind of trying to clear my mind of that idea. And then his face, um, and and this idea came to me. And so it kind of just got me thinking about how music affects us as a person. So it could be, wow, like Jack and I's minds are connected. But, it also could be that deep down somewhere in my mind, I knew exactly what a lazaretto was. And also that somewhere deep down in my subconscious mind, that I have heard his songs or this particular song before. Who knows? Whether it be I was shopping in a store or I was driving in the car and it came on and I wasn't really focused on it. Maybe I was listening to some, another passenger tell me a story or talk about their day and it was just playing in the background and it sunk into my mind and got in there without me even realizing it. Um, and that concept is reflected in this song, how every we soak up everything in our environment, whether we are conscious of it or not. Or perhaps the first thing that I mentioned is we're connected. Maybe, there's some solace in that, is that we all are kind of one. And we all are aware of that on one level or another. And music is one way, one medium in which we can transfer our common knowledge as people. So this can be reflected in the first verse where I say, listen, listen carefully, hear white noise, set your mind free. There are low troughs and high peaks, the frequencies in which he speaks. Now, there, what I'm talking about is sound waves. The low troughs and high peaks and frequencies are all in reflection to a sound wave. And of course, I mentioned white noise, and then the meditation part, which is set your mind free, and listening to the kind of like background meditation noise, music or frequency that I was listening to, where in there somewhere in that like 532 hertz or whatever the heck it was I was listening to, instead of hearing that, I was hearing maybe what my soul wanted to hear, which was some Jack White. So, so white noise is also a play on his name, but also white noise can kind of do the same thing that the frequency meditation type of music can do. So there have been, I don't know, I am a scientist. So there has been studies where they take people and they deprive them of all stimuli. And they put them like in a white room where everything is white and they soundproof it and they have everything lit with the same color and it's just like all white. It puts you in a complete white noise and they even blare white noise through the speakers so that it makes absolute certain that you're not going to hear any outside noises to influence your brain. Now, the reason why scientists were conducting these studies is they kind of want to see, where do dreams come from? Or perhaps these near death experiences where when the brain was deprived of stimulus because it was shutting down, that people start to have these visions, and they kind of want to see, where did these visions come from your brain? Were you um was it the lack of oxygen or the lack of stimulus in other ways making you dream that you were seeing a white light, or making you dream that you were seeing loved ones? So when they did these experiments, interestingly, they found that the participants, a lot of them, the people started to hear conversations, started to hear people talking to them, started to hear background noises like birds tweeting and cars passing by, kind of like, if you were at a cafe and the common street noises you would hear in the background, kind of chatter. And that your brain was just like putting in uh, these normal stimuli, kind of like the soundtrack of your day that you would normally go through, uh, which is very interesting because maybe for me in this instance, uh, my soundtrack was just Jack White music. And so that's what came to mind when I cleared my mind. Um, and then, um, but there's also kind of like a spiritual aspect to it, right? Um, for those of us who believe in spirituality or are religious, we believe that there's kind of like a mind, body, and soul. And I was watching this documentary called Alive Inside, a story of music and memory. And I recommend everybody to go watch this documentary. But it basically is about music therapy for Alzheimer's disease patients. So they would show these patients that were pretty far into the disease process. They had pretty advanced disease, whereas if they were looking at their husband, who they've been married to for 30 years, they wouldn't even know their name or recognize them as their husband, or they wouldn't recognize their own children, let's say. So what they did is they asked the family about some songs that were very significant in this person's life. Things that might have been their favorite song, or the song that was played at the wedding, or a song that used to play every Christmas together, or that the family would dance to together. And they would play these songs to the patient, and then have their family come in. And whereas previously the patient would not even recognize their spouse, now, after listening to, let's say, the song that played at the wedding, or the song that they danced to at the high school dance when they fell in love, that all of a sudden their husband walks in the room and they're like, "Oh, Frank, I haven't seen you. And do you remember this? And do you remember that?" And just talk, 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 talk about all of the memories that they had. So I think this is very interesting because it shows that the way music helps us lock in memories, and where that is locked in, I'm not really sure. The Alzheimer's disease damages a certain part of the brain, probably in the frontal kind of um, lobes, and it's damaged. And so the people aren't able to recall. But wherever the music is affecting whatever part of the brain, or let's just say soul or spirit, that it is affecting, that memory is coming from somewhere else. And whether it's a different part of the brain or whether you believe with me that it is within your spirit itself. And so when I say in the next lines, reminds us of what we used to be before you were Adam and I was Eve, that's what I was talking about before we were in our corporal bodies. And then awakening, alive again, rarefaction, and compression. So awakening and alive again is a reference to the movie Alive Inside, a story of music and memory. And then rarefaction and compression are just terms to use how sound propagates through a medium. And then I go on to say, searching, waiting, what will we find? For lost souls are we most of the time. But in this moment we intertwine, however fleeting, yet always divine. So we're not always aware of the connections that we have. And then we can't always recall them. But in certain special moments, we can remember and we are able to access these memories. So in conclusion, I close with remember, remember his song sung, rarefaction and compression. So here again, I'm just talking about how memories can be recalled. So please remember that you can submit your own original work to this channel. I have my email in the description underneath, in the description box. So if you want to, you don't have to. There is no guarantee that you're making to me that you are going to participate by submitting and writing your own work. But what I'm trying to say is that whatever level, if you just want to listen to some poetry, hear some in-depth behind the stories behind the poetry, that's fine. If you want to maybe take a chance and submit your own work, you can just do it in writing. You don't have to make a video or anything. I can do that for you. Or if you really would like to use your own voice, we can talk about how you can submit an MP3. But just go ahead and you can email me if you're interested in appearing on this channel. Also, let me know if you would like me to cover a Jack White song. Maybe I can do kind of in-depth interpretation, a Jack White song Rorschach, if you will. I would love to do it. I'm going to read your comments below. One of the reasons why I created this was to get some feedback on the work that I show here. I feel like that's something that's really lacking in the literature world, because for most of the time when you submit your work, it goes into like a black hole for like 6 months to a year, and then you just get a yes or a no for the most part. And then even if you get a yes, it's kind of like it goes into an anthology, for the most part, unless you're doing your own poetry book. But for the most part, it goes into an anthology with like 30 other people, and you never hear anything about what anybody ever thought about it. So I'm really curious to see what you have to say. And then also, I feel like it's probably not a coincidence that I chose to start the series off with Jack White, because I feel like musicians, as being a performative art, they get to interact with that crowd. They get to go out there, perform in front of a group, and feel the energy of those people. They can feel their vibe, and whether they're liking it or not liking it, and what to do next. And I feel like for the written word, for the most part, we don't get that sort of feedback. But I feel like in creating this channel, we have the opportunity to maybe interact with each other and learn from one another. If you like this channel, you please subscribe and hit the like button. And this is my first poem and deep dive. So I'm looking forward to reading your comments below. If you'd like to support the channel, I have included a PayPal link in the description below the video. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.